Right now, it's crunch time here, getting close to the finish line, and if you think things couldn't get uglier, you may be mistaken. And the polls, they are all over the place. Anybody's guess how this thing turns out, and for the first time, maybe folks are right here to doubt that the numbers are really right. Plus, we're going to remember an American president who faced many battles of his own, including a deep economic crisis while in office. A new park dedicated in his honor this week will take you to Roosevelt Island. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thanks so much for joining us this Friday evening, October 19th. You heard me right, October 19th already. Only 18 days till the election and the race. I know they always say neck and neck, but this thing really is that tight. Romney is ahead by a sliver of a point if you look at the composites in the poll done by RCP, and it's getting even closer when you look at these numbers. Just take a look at how things have changed just over the past month. Now, what each of these numbers basically means is the thing is schizophrenic. What we want to break down is, what are the candidates behind closed doors optimistic and also real worried about? I want to bring in our panel to get into that. Jessica Proud, Republican strategist, Vice President of NLO Strategies. Dominc, political journalist and author, of course. Scott Levenson, Democratic political consultant and president of the Advance Group. And Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent. All right, Jessica, I'll start with the brains to the table here. Behind closed doors, when Tag doesn't want to take a swing at the president. No. What are these guys feeling good about at this point, and what are they also a little bit worried about?
Well, I think the Romney campaign is feeling pretty confident right now because they have the big mo. And going in this close to the election, having momentum is really critical. So they've had some great debate performances. Monday is absolutely critical for them to maintain that. You know, if for some reason the president got the best of him, it could be another game changer like you saw in the first debate. So that's critical. I think they're really focused on a ground game right now. You know, you spent all these months trying to identify your voters, and now it's up to figuring out that you can turn them out. And of course, Ohio is a big question mark. It's not necessarily a must-win, but it certainly creates an easier path.
Makes life a lot easier to get to 270 with it. Scott, how about on the Democratic side? I know also, as Jessica said, Monday, the final debate there in Florida here. It's going to be on foreign policy. What do they like when they look at the map here, and what are they worried about?
I mean, they're feeling pretty confident, especially after the last debate. Everybody was concerned about the first one for legitimate and real reasons, but the national polls don't really tell the whole story. It's the state by state which tells you the story. And even with Virginia not trending well and Florida being off the table, there's a clear road to electoral victory, so they're feeling pretty confident.
They don't think they win in Florida?
Well, they know they can win without winning in Florida. And they also believe that the more the issues become the topic, the more the differentials between the candidates become the topic, the more it trends in their favor.
What are they worried about that we haven't gotten into yet, or that could come up around this time of the calendar?
Well, I mean, the big story after the election will be how much of the vote was won before the election. So the early voting is something that they're pretty confident in, but until you see the results,
we always talk, though, about October surprises, right, Dominc? And there's always something, whether it's you know, that they've been sitting on for a while, or something that happens organically somewhere in some hot spot around the world, or somebody slips up on the campaign trail. This year, more than others, usually it comes in beginning October. We already know it by now. It's really conceivable how fluid this thing is. It could happen in a week from now, right?
It really could, Richard. We don't know exactly the dynamics of what surprise may be out there for either side. I'm sure both camps.
I
you
know
do?
which I do.
What is it?
I can't tell you, or it won't be a surprise, Dominic.
But
yeah, thank you, John. Thank you.
That is a
You're the
good
best
point,
audience.
though, because if there is some foreign incident that happens that allows the president to act like the president, you know, it could shift a lot of the attention off of what happened in Benghazi and how everyone's viewed that as a giant disaster. Or, on the other hand, if he handles it poorly, it could work in Romney's favor.
And the surprise could also be on a micro level when this race comes down to potentially 4 counties within the state of Ohio.
Well, you know, we're talking about stuff like, we were talking before this morning about issues that they did a snap poll, right? And they were saying, all right, what are the biggest issues to the female vote coming out of the last debate? what was in Ohio, all of a sudden abortion was trending as right up there along with obviously jobs, but all of a sudden a social issue could be up there when somebody talks about binders, right?
Yeah. I mean, that popped up out of one of the polls that we got in yesterday, that 2-to-1, abortion was the #1 issue in, I'm not sure if it was Ohio or Iowa. Too many polls coming in at any given point now, but it was really surprising that was the number that came back in the poll. You wonder what the impact is on the race, or if perhaps just the discussion of it prompted that to become a bigger issue in the last time it was asked.
Romney's closing that gap among women in most of the polls. So.
And they haven't baked in those new numbers with the new second debate. The second debate returns haven't done. I'm not sure it's going to affect it too much, but we haven't factored those in the latest numbers.
But you got to believe it was a strange decision for the Romney folks to double down on going after Roe v. Wade. I mean, when women are the swing vote, to go at that as frontal as
they need to be
It makes sense if they're
the
playing to their
economy.
base. It's questionable if they're trying for independence.
And then there's always, Dominic, what we always knows happens at this point. I butchered the language. I'm just going to move on. But it's the I Love America spot. Every incumbent around this time doesn't mention his opponent in the spot. There's some flag somewhere. He's going to walk forward. He's going to look at the camera. He's going to tell you how much he loves his country and how much, if he's given 4 more years, this country is going to look that much better. The challenger can certainly do it as well. But that moment always happens right around the end of October, beginning November. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's some tax return story. Maybe it's some story about corruption in the government or whatever. But there is something that these camps have been sitting on. And now with these third-party groups here, they can find somebody else if they want to do the dirty work, some surrogate to get this thing out here. There's some other dirt or some other story that's going to come out.
Let me tell you, Richard, if you're the president, you better go ahead and do what you have to do, Mr. President, because it's not looking too good right now. And let me tell you one of the warning signs that I'm looking at, and Scott would know this better than I would, but I don't see the enthusiasm and community. No. Right now, the president and communities of color, the way that I did 4 years ago. If the president doesn't maximize his turnout with his base, it's bye-bye. And I'm not seeing
that.
it.
Applies also to the Latino vote as well. All right, we're gonna jump to another subject, but I want to tell you folks to get involved in this conversation online. This program, not a one-way dialogue. You sound off as well. Go to Facebook, Twitter. 18 days left, and I want to know if you've already made up your mind. As Andrew said, a lot of early voting going on out there. I still can't believe anybody's still sitting on the fence after a year here, but if you are on the fence, why? And if you have decided, what finally pushed you one way or the other? Also, quick programming note. On Monday, we're going to have complete coverage and post-game analysis of the presidential debate. Cue the soundtrack. All right. When we come back, though, we're going to take a closer look at some of those numbers. And I've always defended polls where everybody loves to bitch and moan about, oh, they're not right. This year, though, they're all over the place. We're going to try and make sense of why they've been so screwy this year. We'll be right back with that after this.